Throughout the history, people have used torture devices to punish their enemies and those accused of crimes. Despite the fact that torture doesn't produce reliable information, but they've used it as a means to elicit confessions or convince a victim to give up other people's names. So, here are some famous torture devices from history. Number 1. The Brazen Bull. It consisted of a life-size bronze bull that was hollow on the inside and had a door on the outside. The torturer would place the victim inside and light a fire under the bull. This fire would roast the victim to death, and while the acoustic system on the bull made the victim's screams sound like bull noises to people on the outside. The second one is the Iron Apega, also known as the Apega of Nabis. One of the most fantastical tales of a torture device is the Iron Apega. The ancient Greek historian Polybius wrote that the Spartan king Nabis, who ruled from 207 to 192 BCE, built a sort of torture robot that resembled his wife, Apega. Polybius wrote that whenever Nabis was trying to collect taxes from someone who refused to pay, the king would invite that person to hug his wife and point the person toward the robot. When the person embraced the robot, it would draw in its arms, crushing the victim with iron hooks hidden under its clothes. However, scholars have suggested that Polybius's story of the tax-collecting torture robot was allegorical, and that the Iron Apega did not really exist. 3. The Rack. The rack was a torture device used at the Royal Tower and Palace in London, which also served as a prison from the beginning of the 15th century. The yeoman warders, who worked at the tower, used the rack to pull on ropes tied to a victim's wrists and ankles. This stretched the body and dislocated the victim's joints. Yeoman warders used the rack on people suspected of treason and religious heresy to try to get them to confess and give up the names of other conspirators. And one famous victim was the English writer and Protestant preacher Anne Askew. In 1546, yeoman warders tortured her on the rack and asked her to name Protestant sympathizers. After she refused, officials burned her at the stake. Then they carried her to her execution because the torture made her unable to walk. Number 4. The thumbscrew. This is another pain-inflicting device from Europe's early modern period. It used to crush a person's fingers or thumbs. Torturers employed the thumbscrew as a means of punishment and an attempt to elicit a confession. The thumbscrew was also known as a thumbikin, with many spelling variations. The Scavenger's Daughter. The Scavenger's Daughter was a metal frame that compressed the victim's body in on itself. The compression from the Scavenger's Daughter was so intense, led to cause the victim to start bleeding from the nose, mouth, and other parts of the body. This gruesome form of torture could result in death, and the device was used at the Tower of London.